Justin Trudeau has blood on his hands. Yeah, I said it. He's got blood on his hands. These things should have been retired at least 5 months ago. This guy who says that veterans are asking for too much when it comes to pensions and rehabilitation money. This guy who gives 8-figure checks to terrorists can go one step further and try to milk aircraft that are already well past their best before date. So I think, Sheila, this was an unnecessary death. You know, Sheila, we should begin the show with paying our respects to Captain Jen Casey. She is the member of the Royal Canadian Air Force, of course, that died in that horrific Snowbird accident in British Columbia over the weekend. And, you know, Sheila, I'm driving in, I'm scanning the talk radio channels, and everyone's saying the same thing. Oh, now is not the time to get partisan. Now is not. Well, you know what? Yeah, I think now is the time to get partisan, Sheila. You know, I know you're going to file a full report on this, and I know it's going to be excellent, but it should be pointed out that these planes date back to the Vietnam War era. I mean, they're older than me, for goodness sakes. And we know that Prime Minister Stephen Harper was going to retire them as of 2020. So, in other words, 5 months ago, these things are already in a museum where they probably belong. And the Justin Trudeau Liberals, one of the first orders of business, because that's the kind of disrespect they have for the military, they threw out that order and decided another decade of flying. And these are precision flying machines. There's literally not even more than a few inches in terms of an error. And they wanted to get every last possible air mile out of these aircraft. And of course, Justin Trudeau today at his 11 a.m. meetings, you know, he said all the right things about the respects and, you know, Captain Casey's service and whatnot. But you know what, as far as I'm concerned, Sheila Gunn-Reid, Justin Trudeau has blood on his hands. Yeah, I said it. He's got blood on his hands. These things should have been retired at least 5 months ago. And I believe you mentioned something off air that they've had to cannibalize 10 of these aircraft to keep the remaining 9 in the sky. This is a disgrace. And it's funny how this guy who says that veterans are asking for too much when it comes to pensions and rehabilitation money, this guy who gives 8-figure checks to terrorists can go one step further and try to milk aircraft that are already well past their best before date. So I think, Sheila, this was an unnecessary death.
Well, and that's the thing. We don't know if it's pilot error or plane error, but that doesn't change the conversation around the fact that Canada's premier aerial team, the forward face of our Air Force, they've been flying in 60-year-old planes that Stephen Harper wanted to replace. They started the process to replace them in 2012. Stephen Harper set aside $795 million to replace these planes. He wanted to have them replaced by 2018. Why? Because of expert advice saying that these things are absolutely at the end of their service life by 2020. They should not be in the air after 2020. Justin Trudeau, though, in 2018, canceled that procurement of these new planes. And to put it into context, the amount of money that it would cost to replace these, it was $795 million. The CBC gets $1.5 billion every single year. So just one half of the CBC's annual budget to give the forward face of Canada's Air Force the planes they need to represent Canada on a global scale, because that's what the Snowbirds do. They go to air shows. They go internationally. They've been on a cross-country tour, a last-minute cross-country tour in 6-year-old planes, by the way, at the behest of Justin Trudeau to raise the morale of Canadians. For context, the American Blue Angel team, so that's their equivalent of our Snowbirds, they fly in the Super Hornet. So that's a plane that sort of first took flight circa Y2K. And the American public kind of thinks that they should have something newer because of the fact that they are the outward face of the Air Force. And it's funny how there's a different mentality about these things between, I would suggest, some segments of the Canadian public versus the American public. And I think also you and I were talking off air, it depends on who you ask. Like if you asked, do the Snowbirds need new planes? In Edmonton, where we have a base right next door in like northeastern Alberta, where we're very close to Cold Lake, people would say definitely. In downtown Toronto, I don't know if you'd get that same answer.
That's an excerpt from a daily live stream show that I do every day at 12 noon Eastern time. I talk about the stories of the day, play some fun videos, and most importantly, I take your questions and comments in what YouTube calls a super chat. If you like that, please tune in live. It's way more fun that way. You can join the conversation. And every day at 8 p.m., I have a special produced show with a whole monologue, and I interview guests, and I read my fan mail and my hate mail. You can learn more about both my daily live show and the nightly premium show at rebelnews.com.